point on the planet to the point that a rupture occurs. And the reason that that rupture will occur is because as the sinkholes have, as a phenomenon, have spread behind them in their wake deep in the planet, you have to understand that as each crack appears, material will fill it. And so it can't settle back and become less expansive. And so as the expansion works its way out, from a pressurized viewpoint, it's as though there's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of balloons inside each other, very much like the onion skins, and you start blowing up the inner balloon, and because of the nature of the balloons having small holes, the air leaks from one layer of balloon to the other, but you can see that air will transit less slowly through the little holes than it will through the main hole that's feeding the main source that's feeding the inner balloon in it all. And so it will take a amount of time for it to percolate up through the various different layers of the balloons through all the little tiny holes, and consequently it's always pressurized. And it is only when it gets to that last layer that the pressure is ultimately released. And unfortunately for us critters, we live on that last layer. And so we'll be really experiencing this. So what I'm actually looking for is I've got, in terms of physical precursors towards a very nasty series of expansion events, is far north sinkholes of some size. And I've got buddies that are up in the First Nations area far north of Canada and in Alaska and Russia. And these people are going to keep an eye out for me and let me know. And so if I hear some of these guys, if I hear Patrick up in Canada start yelling, dude, you know, an island just sank or something like that, I'll let y'all know that, hey, you know, we've reached that far. Some of these people are up near in the 50s and 60s of latitude, so it'll take a while, I think. I'm at, in the upper 40s here, I'm at 47.22. And so I think the highest occurrence we've had so far is in the latitude of 39, I believe, of a sinkhole that we could put as a cause to something other than, you know, water main breaking or any of these subsurface human-caused or human-initiated sinkholes, because those occur frequently. You get a water main that breaks and it erodes land and you get a sinkhole, but it's not quite the same effect as these bottomless pit sinkholes. So that's that. If you see them, stay away from them. They're nasty. Second item here is chemtrails. They have been slamming us with chemtrails, just going all night long. And then in the next day, like yesterday, I saw 4 different sets of planes throughout the day spraying. Could be the same set of planes from different angles, I can't really tell. But there were 4 attacks, if you will, on our airspace. And they're really spraying it thick. I've never seen it sprayed quite this thick this time of the year. Now, of course, the winds are moving it towards the east, and so I don't know what the goal is or the effect or whatever, but boy, are they working it. And it's been causing all kinds of problems with headaches and migraines and chemtrail flu out here on the west coast, especially in the Pacific Northwest. So just sort of a heads up that some level of activity is anticipated or going on. You know, it's a real bitch not knowing what their goal is in terms of getting the chemtrails up there, because you can anticipate just based on, use the chemtrail spraying as an indicator as to what's happening and what's up. If we knew, for instance, that the military was spraying this because high energy particles were interfering with their sensing apparatus, then we would know, oh, there's a lot of high energy particles from the sun coming in. Or if we knew that they were spraying because the chemtrails prevented UFOs from appearing, well, then we would know, oh, we're under a heavy UFO attack. So that kind of a thing. Not knowing it, all we can really say is there's a lot of the shit up there, and it doesn't make you feel good when it comes down on top of you. Now, this is the real point of today's Wujo, and it's a hard thing to describe, very difficult. It has to do with my personal history in relation to the work that I do here, in relation to our social order as a whole, and how things have occurred. Now, basically, I'm trying to describe something that is very subtle, is very difficult to actually put into words. I'm quite certain it has occurred, and I have reasons for thinking that, and I'm going to share those reasons as well as speculate on some of the ancillary effects of this. But it is very odd indeed. Now, if it was just myself, I wouldn't even think about it. wouldn't speak about it. I would just say, oh, okay, there's just, something wonky, you got up wrong and you had a minor stroke and your brain's going a little screwy and you're just not sure what the hell's happening. Problem is, it's not just me that is picking this up. It is not my delusion alone. And now we could all be deluded, the people that are reporting this, that we're talking about this, but at least I know it's shared. So it is operating at a larger universal level. It's the subtlety of it that really presents the difficulty in communication. So what I'll do is I'll describe the situation and we'll proceed from there. About 1993, I started getting into the idea, and that developed into my software programs, hundreds of them, that in total form the WebBot project and our predictive linguistics. That was 93. I started working it in 96 and 97. I'd had the code written by then. There were hundreds of executable programs necessary to make this thing occur. And so it took me a long time. It took me a couple of years. I was trying to work and make a living at the same time. So I was doing all this on my own and working long hours and then coming home and coding this crap myself. So around 96, 97, I start making my runs. In 98, I encountered my first competitor, which was this chunk of Chinese software. You have to know how the internet actually worked in this thing called robots.txt file, and the method by which you used to be able to propagate code from Unix box to Unix box that were the backbones of the servers to understand it all, and I won't go into it. But I encountered some Chinese software that told me, oh, I wasn't alone. Somebody else was also doing this. And I became aware then, over the years, of a number of, if you will, competitors or emulators or people also in this line of work. That is to say, people that were using the internet in some way, usually in a linguistic way, at its its root. That's all the internet is. It's just words on the stream, so to speak. Anyway, so everybody was using words, and many of these people were not simply mining for information like the NSA or the Defense Intelligence Agency or any of these other people with all their weird software. Okay, it was not the Promise kind of software. It wasn't Echelon. It wasn't any of that kind of stuff. But I started encountering various different kinds of softwares and programs and people that were doing predictive work, like myself. So over the years, and it's been a number of them, nearly 20 now, that have been actually involved in all of this, but 10 actively, seriously running on a weekly or daily basis. I've encountered a number of people in the same line. Now, these people use various different methodologies. I have some locations of some of these competitors, some individuals, but of course, on the internet, locations can be obscured, so it's not a real good indicator, but that's how I have a tendency to think of the various different people at within this larger sphere of predictive work using the internet. I think of Rich in Poland, and Robert in France, and Craig up in Illinois, and the Recorded Future guys in Chicago, and this kind of thing. So there's just these various different people around. Now, because of the way in which it all worked out and the publicity that I've received over the years and so on, there have been a number of people that have emulated my approach. And so they've contacted me over the years asking for advice, or actually many times just to tell me, hey, I also got this, and I found this, that, and the other thing using this wrinkle on that idea. Which is cool, and you develop a relationship with all these individuals that are also out there doing the same sort of thing. Now, because we're inventing this as we go along, and you have to work out methods and then do a methodological study of your own methods to make sure you're not overlooking or at least attempt to make sure you're not overlooking obvious areas from which you can profit from existing code and so on, it becomes a self-examining process. This is a key element here, that everybody that is successful in this work is involved in the work at that level. This is why Recorded Future is mainly crapping out, in my opinion, as well as two of the other major predictive linguistic software organizations. It's because they are working their paradigm from a growth model. They're not, oh, we've started this, let's just keep going, and they don't stop and recycle all their code through their own thinking and then examine where they're at and what their goal is. They're not in an iterative loop, feedback loop of their own relationship with time the way the others of us are. And that, I think, and also, by the way, these elements, these groups within the broader field of predictive linguistics that are failing are all big corporations. And I've been there, done that with Microsoft and a lot of other major corporations throughout the planet here. And as I've seen with some of these guys, when they reach a problem, the tendency is for management to just throw more money at it and get more people involved. And so that's what's going to screw them over. They're never going to be able to overcome the inherent barriers in their thinking by simply adding more people who are going to muddy the thinking process and direct you further along the existing paradigm, which is basically what you want to get out of. It's the paradigm that's causing the problem. So I'm basically still describing the process here and trying to sort of fit a little context for you, because it's a very difficult situation, I guess you'd have to say, to describe, or occurrence or event or whatever. I don't really want to use an event, as event could be misconstrued in any number of different ways. But the context is that these individuals that are within the same predictive business that I'm in, and myself, have all noticed something, and in essence we're sort of in the same situation, noticing it all simultaneously, or at least coming to awareness more or less at the same time. So there's 4 individuals involved, myself and 3 others. We're all in this line of work, and we all at a particular date and time, particular date, let's not say time, because we're not really sure that about that aspect of it, but on a particular date of this past month, we noticed, let's just call it a change. So in essence, what we think has happened is that there has been a temporal intrusion. I guess that's a good word. Well, maybe that's presuming some stuff. So I don't know if anything intruded into our time, but because of circumstances within our work, all 4 of us arrived independently, without ever discussing it with any of the others, at the conclusion that time had been altered, or a ripple went through time, or a wrinkle, or that's why I'm using lots of different words here, because there's a level of ambiguity involved. There are certain levels of there are levels of certainty involved as well. We know certain things occurred, and we can actually demonstrate these things. Now, the further context here, the premise involved, must go to the idea that because of the nature of our work, we're paying closer attention to nuances of the karyos and chronos of time than are most ordinary humans. And because we're sensitive to it, we were aware of this thing occurring, and that's sort of it's a condemning factor in the sense that our own sensitivity could be allowing us to misread part of the situation and put in or project our own interpretation on these events. And we don't want to. I don't want to. Some of the other guys are quite certain here of what has occurred, and I want to hold out for a lot of ambiguity at the moment, because I am greatly uncertain as to what has occurred, but I know something did. So let's describe a situation here, and there's a number of different elements involved. So let's say that between the 4 of us, we have 20 items in our set, and each and every one of these items within this collective set among the 4 of us all go to the support of this central idea that something occurred in time. Now, it could be that it was a situation of an intrusion in time, as in the sense of, a time traveler popped into our time from a distant future, that time traveler is very much more complex a being than the nature of reality is at this point in our